I'm Jenny. I'm a poet and a promoter and an educator. I live in Edinburgh, and I grew up in South Ayrshire on the West Coast. I'm also a member of National Collective as well. National Collective is the creative movement for Scottish independence. It's a very grassroots organisation. We've got people all over Scotland involved in sort of building momentum through culture and the arts, and discussing, really imagining a better Scotland is our slogan. Now, although it is creatives, artists and creatives for Scottish independence, we believe that anybody who has a vision that they want to build towards an independent Scotland is creative, and that's what we really want this movement to be. I mean, if we get a yes vote, building a new nation is the ultimate creative act, really, isn't it? So that's basically what National Collective's about. I got involved personally through the arts, through a poetry event I was asked to perform at. I'd never heard of National Collective before. I was only just starting to become more comfortable with the fact that I was going to be voting yes. It had taken me a wee while to decide, and I got involved from there, and they were just so enthusiastic, just so effective as well, and so fun, and completely not party political at all, which had been my fear when I was first sort of getting involved in the campaign. They've got people from all different political parties and none as well, and I just really wanted to be part of it and to do what I could to help. Because we do tend to be younger, a lot of us have grown up with the Scottish Parliament being a thing. All of our adult lives, the Scottish Parliament has existed, so that does give us a different take, perhaps, from the people who've been campaigning for independence for a long time. But that's no bad thing, because we can speak to that generation of people who, because there's been a Scottish Parliament, have been told, well, you know, that's enough for you guys, isn't it? But no, it's not, and we know it, and we're starting to realise it more and more, and I think that's where the strength of our youth comes in. And given that we are a generation who, you know, since we've been old enough to hold a fork, have been told that we're politically apathetic, that we are individualist, that we are only in it for ourselves, that we're not that interested in politics. I think National Collective has been a bit of a wake-up call. It's like, no, there are this growing band of youngsters and troublemakers who are really, really heavily involved in the campaign and arguing the case and challenging some of the old models as well. So, I mean, that's infectious, really, isn't it? We've been growing our branches as well. We've got branches in Stirling, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Aberdeen and Dundee at the moment, and I help organise the Edinburgh branch, so we're growing that just now, because although a lot of stuff with National Collective does happen online, that's where we release articles and videos and things like that. And what we really want to do is to engage people in the communities that we're working in and being creative in. So running sort of local events, cultural events mainly, because we actually feel that is a great way to engage people who are undecided. And I think everybody knows that it's, you know, no matter how passionately we feel, it's the people who are still undecided who are going to swing this either way. And if we can be, you know, being a pretty fun element of the independence campaign, running events, engaging with people, getting people's ideas for what they want their Scotland to look like, whether they're yes or no or undecided, and putting those thoughts together, and obviously while presenting them as an argument for yes, that's really what National Collective wants to do. I've always been very interested in politics since I was young, but independence itself had never been a question that crossed my mind until 2011, when I found myself voting for the SNP for a start, which was something I never would have imagined I would have done before. And then it suddenly became an issue. It became something I was going to have to make a decision on. I was going to be asked to in 2014, so I had to make a decision. And starting to look at the arguments, I realised I wasn't going to be voting no, because a no to me straight away felt like an endorsement of the way things are. And then I thought, well, is it an endorsement of the way things are? Surely it's not. Just because I'm voting no, it doesn't mean that I like what's happening. But then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, it doesn't need to be against something. I need to vote for something. So it became about, again, imagining what could be. And for me, it's the state of politics that has led me to become somebody who's voting yes, because we have a real chance to actually change the way that politics works. And it's why I'm so excited being part of a group like National Collective as well, who are having a political discourse outside of not just mainstream politics, but outside the mainstream media as well, because that's been one of the problems with politics, and it's intertwined with the problems with the media and the way the media works. The British state isn't working. I mean, the policies are abhorrent, a lot of them. They're abhorrent and they are odious, and the people speaking them they seem to live in a very different country than the one that I feel I live in, for a start, and definitely a very different country from the one I want to live in. I mean, the bedroom tax is symptomatic of what's wrong with with the UK state and what is wrong with politics in general. I mean, the short-termism of what they are doing to try and solve the massive housing crisis is ridiculous. Instead of building more houses, which, you know, any 11-year-old would tell you is what needs to happen, and in fact they have done, in my classrooms, they've said, you know how we've got lots of homeless people and there's this bedroom tax, and think, why don't we just build more houses, Miss Lindsay? I'm like, well, yeah, that would make sense, wouldn't it? However, them not being blessed with that insight of an 11-year-old, they are appealing to the very worst instincts in people, which is, oh, why should they get that when I don't get such and such, which is entirely the wrong way to think about society. It's a very individualistic way to think about society, and that's what they're encouraging. The biggest economic problem of our time, I mean, apart from, you know, the banking and the housing crisis and speculation and on food and ridiculously immoral things like that, is the massive and growing gap between the rich and the poor. That is a sign of an incredibly sick society. There have been so many studies done in this. It's not about how rich a country is, it's how unequal it is that determines how happy, how prosperous, how healthy you are. I mean, unequal countries like the UK, we have, you know, massively high rates of mental health issues, higher rates of, you know, teen pregnancies, social alienation, riots, all of these things. We could change that if we become a smaller country, if we get away from some of those kind of things, or we can at least start to fix it. You know, it's going to take a long time, because it involves completely rethinking quite a lot of the things that we have, you know, grown up with and told that we should have. For example, houses that we own, for example. I mean, we really don't have to do that. We really don't. What the argument usually is that in a globalised world that is ever-changing and fast-moving, why would you want to, you know, set up another border? Why would you want to be smaller? It's all about interconnectedness and, you know, all of these different kinds of things. But I actually think that, okay, if you're saying that there are these invisible globalized forces that mean we all need to, you know, intertwine with each other, it's probably better if you have your politics closer to home then, is it not? Because otherwise you're going to get overtaken by events elsewhere. So it's better to have your politics closer. I mean, we're certainly not too stupid. We're certainly not too small. What we need is a bit more confidence, I think, basically, is the confidence to know that we can do this. Although I am absolutely thrilled that the SNP have got us to this point, our parliament was not set up to have one party in control. And what I would like to see is a more sort of consensual type of politics again. What that's going to mean is not just the SNP, but the other political parties, particularly some of the rhetoric that's been coming from Labour of late. They got to change their tone and the way that they engage with people in that parliament. So for a start, I want us to have less confrontation in the parliament. What I would also like is a lot more political representation. So, and I'm not just talking about, you know, the fact that we still don't have gender parity, or you know, enough representation of people from ethnic minorities. It's not just that, a much better sort of engagement with and from people who aren't middle class, people who haven't been to university. They never get asked their opinion about anything. Why not? Why not? So more representation from people who haven't done the, you know, straight from school to university to aid to a politician to, you know, safe seat somewhere. We need more politicians like that. I mean, we're not as bad as Westminster. We're not. I mean, it would be silly to say we were. There are a lot of great, strong voices in the Scottish Parliament, but we need more of them, and we need more political parties as well. I'd hope that possibly some new political parties might emerge actually post-independence. Well, I think so far the referendum campaign, I mean, it's always quite hard when you're involved in it, isn't it? Because you go, oh, we're making so many waves, and then you speak to somebody who isn't that into politics, they're like, oh, I'd never even heard of that. And you're like, what? How could you not? It's so important. Really positive things about the referendum debate so far is the fact that I don't know anybody who has gone from yes to no. I don't know anybody who's gone from yes to being undecided again. All I've met are people who were voting no and are now undecided, or people who are undecided and are now voting yes, which I think is definitely a very, very important thing, and very positive. My main hope for next year, apart from a yes vote, is massive turnout. I think that if we get a yes vote with, you know, 50% turnout or 60% turnout, that is not a good foundation. It's a difficult foundation to build on. And I think one of the things that we have to do as a campaign is make sure that we get folk involved who wouldn't normally think that their voice counted, or didn't even know that they had a voice to use. And for me, that's what I hope comes out of the referendum, that more people go out and vote, that we have, you know, 99% turnout or something like that, and we get a yes, because that would be a brilliant foundation to start on.